today's chapter, we are going over Zechariah chapter 9, verses 9 through 10. And in this chapter, so Jesus returns to Jerusalem shortly before he becomes crucified. And everyone in the city of Jerusalem, they're referring to Jesus as king. They're saying, the king has come back, so now we must rejoice. So what do they mean when they're calling Jesus king? It means Jesus is now the person that they trust, the person that can rule over their lives. And there are 4 very important points in this chapter. So, when he comes back to Jerusalem as king, he shows his righteousness. What is righteousness? It means being a good person and doing the decent things, being a decent human being. And he also shows that he's bringing salvation, that he can save everyone. And he's being humble, so being a very humble and honest person, not bringing attention to himself, not bragging about himself. And the last important point is that he rode back to Jerusalem in a donkey. So, can you imagine somebody riding on a donkey? Isn't that kind of a funny visual, right? So, for example, if I came into church driving into a Ferrari, right? Oh, a very expensive Ferrari. Ooh, what would you think? You'd be like, wow, James is rich. But what if I came to church riding on a donkey? What kind of image is that, right? You would be like, who is this guy? He's crazy. So this was exactly the image that Jesus was trying to show in the city of Jerusalem. So, of course, a lot of people knew that Jesus was the Messiah at this point and that he was going to save all of us from our sins. But then there were plenty of people who were doubting him. They were saying like, oh, why is this person riding back to Jerusalem in a donkey? So this is precisely what Jesus was trying to emphasize on. What he was trying to say was that it's not about how you dress, it's not about how much money you have, what type of jewelry you wear, what kind of things you ride on. What's more important is him, the fact that he is being a humble person and showing everybody in Jerusalem that he is not above anyone. So we are all at the same level, right? So let me ask all of you, what was the hardest day of your life? Anybody? Cheon, what was the hardest day of your life? Have you ever failed a test? Well, I have failed many tests in my life. So those were very difficult. So Jesus, when he was crucified, he was trying to tell everyone as a reminder that we're all going to have very difficult days in our lives. Of course, we're going to have good days, but we're going to have plenty of bad days. So they call this day Palm Sunday when Jesus went back to Jerusalem, mainly because everyone knows what a palm tree is, right? Palm trees, you see many of them in like Hawaii and Los Angeles. So people in Jerusalem, people who accepted Jesus into their lives as the Messiah, they broke off the branches of the palm trees and they were trying to lead the way, trying to make way for Jesus to go through. Yeah, exactly. So, once again, we should serve this as a reminder. So, for example, I had many bad days. The worst day of my life was probably when I traveled to Japan. I had a friend who lived in the city of Sendai. It's like a 5-hour train ride from Tokyo. And my parents gave me like 12 big, heavy boxes to bring back to my friend's family. I had no idea how I was going to do this. I had to transfer about 4 trains. So it was like maybe a 10-hour trip. And at one point, I was just like kicking boxes down the stairs because I could not carry them. They were too heavy, and my body was so broken. And I was so mad at my parents. I said, like, why did you give me all these boxes? And of course, they had no idea. They thought, oh, maybe the city was close to Tokyo, but it wasn't. And the good thing that came out of it was, of course, I had a very hard time that day, but it turned out to be the best trip of my life. So with the good comes the bad, or with the bad comes the good. So it's a constant cycle, everyone. So let's remind ourselves that we'll have plenty of hardships, but we'll have plenty of good days, okay?